Thank you for coming to this webinar. So this webinar's title is called What's Your Parenting Style and How It Affects Your Child? So my name is Shannon Palmer. I got my bachelor's in psychology, and then I got my master's in social work at Westfield State. I am currently the high school guidance counselor at Hampton Charter School of Science at the East Building in Chicopee, and I have 2 years work experience.
Hi, my name is Joan Normand. I have my bachelor's in social work and my master's in educational psychology. I have 20 years of school experience in regular public, private, and charter, and I am the school social worker for Hampton Charter School of Science, East and West. So tonight we want to cover creating a positive and nurturing environment, how parenting has changed but maybe stayed the same through the years, the different styles, the pros and cons of each, and examples of how each looks, the impact your parenting style has on your child's development, and resources, because it's a hard job and we all need some help. So a parenting style. There is no right or wrong way to be a parent as long as your child is nurtured and supported in a positive environment. You'll find yourself using a combination of all the styles that we are talking about, especially as your child develops their own temperament and personality and at times tests yours. We hear so much about parenting and how it affects our children. We also know that how we were raised affects how we raise our children. In our world of internet platforms like TikTok, Reels, Instagram, there's a space for everyone to express their theories, which is overwhelming as we're trying to narrate our way through this. The theories are conflicting, and at times some of them are based on nothing but opinion. It's so important that we make sure we are formed and doing what's best for our children. So there is something called responsive and demandingness, and that is the basis of what you create your parenting style on. The school of thought is that a good parenting style will have both responsiveness and demandingness. A parent who has responsiveness, it's when we encourage our child's individuality, we help them self-regulate and be assertive while being supportive of their needs and wants. In demandingness, it's when we have expectations of parents, including being an active member of our family, developing their own emotional maturity, and following your family expectations. Parents' demandingness will provide supervision and discipline, especially as the child tests you and may disobey. The ideal style, again, will have both. Another key point of your parenting style is to have a positive and nurturing environment. Nurture is the first and most important part of your child's environment. A positive and nurturing space is the foundation of the parent-child relationship. A positive and nurturing environment provides your children with a safe and stable space to be creative and have their own emotional climate. This supportive environment allows your child to thrive and develop into healthy and productive individuals. A positive and nurturing environment has 3 key points. Safety is the first one. In order to provide a safe space, it is free from physical and psychological harm. A child feels secure when its environment is free from physical dangers, and also a space that allows them to express themselves, make mistakes, and provide consequence. And then we provide consequences that allow them to learn and grow from their choices. A nurturing and positive environment is stable. The stable environment provides a child with predictable and constant environment to support their social, emotional, and physical development. The stable space allows a child to know what to expect, not only when it comes to routines, but what to anticipate in terms of rules of the house. A nurturing environment not only meets their basic needs, but also their psychological needs. This is a space that allows your child's social, emotional, and physical development to meet with consistency and sensitivity from the parent. Children learn to test boundaries, push limits, and see what feels right for them. As the parent, we must nurture this growth in a way that supports and guides, but also ensures safety psychologically and physically. As long as their environment nurtures the physical, cognitive, and emotional growth, there is no right or wrong way to parent. It is a balance of a positive and nurturing space that ensures freedom, ensures safety from harm, including an abuse and neglect, while we're implementing expectations and guiding them.
So how has parenting changed over the years? So parenting has changed a lot from when our parents were parents, when our grandparents were parents, when we become parents, and when our children become parents. So in today's society, we actually are seeing a decline of children living in two-parent households. So in today's society, according to the Pew Research study, 69% of children younger than 18 are living with two parents, which is down from 87% in 1960, which is a record low. So a record low 62% of children living with two married parents, while 7% live with two cohabiting parents. Meanwhile, the share of children living in a single parent household has increased by 3 times the amounts, from 9% to 26%. We're seeing a good half of American parents also saying that they feel like they actually are doing a good job in their parenting. About half of American parents say they are doing a good job. Mothers are more likely to say that they are doing the good job over fathers, 51% over 39%. But what we're seeing is that 57% of millennial moms are saying that they are doing a good job, and parents care about how others see their parenting. Immediate parents and beyond, like Joan was saying, we're seeing, parents on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, showing how they parent. And then, some parents may pick up different parenting tricks from other parents, or they might criticize what the parent is doing. Another thing that has changed over the years is that new technology has lessened some stress for parents. That includes baby monitors, heart rate monitors, monitors for your babies when they're sleeping to make sure that they are, breathing in at night. We're also seeing an increase of stay-at-home dads, moms working full-time, an increase of prevalence of nannies in daycare. We're seeing more and more children in daycare because we're seeing moms working full-time and dads working full-time. Children are in daycare up until about 5 p.m. or even later, because we're seeing parents that are working full-time, and it's not the normal 9-to-5 job like it was, in decades before. We're also seeing that household sizes have decreased. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but earlier generations were more likely to have family sizes that were a lot larger than, the normal for family household that we see in today's society. We're seeing, a mom and a dad and maybe 2 kids or 1 child, whereas before you would see 5 children. And then parents are older than before. We're seeing a prevalence of parents of individuals who are valuing their education over starting a family, or they want some stability before they start a family, because it's starting to be a lot more expensive to have a child. So then parenting throughout the years. So when you're thinking about the different generations of our society, there are 7 main generations: the greatest generation, the silent generation, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha. So the first generation that we're going to talk about is the greatest generation. which is the individuals born from 1901 to 1927. These are the GI generations, referring to the American soldiers who fought in World War II. Major life events for the greatest generation included the Great Depression, World War II, jazz and swing music, Roaring Twenties, the stock market crash, and the golden age of Hollywood. So the greatest generation gave birth to the baby boomers and then the grandparents of Generation X and the millennials. This generation was all about raising families that valued hard work because they know about hard loss and they know about loss and hard times. And they're really realistic about the way that they life and their influence and how they're influenced by their parenting style. The greatest generation produced large families. As you will, everyone knows about the baby boomers or the baby booms. After the world wars, parents were more likely to have bigger families because they were without their significant other for long periods of time. So they did what they had to do to make ends meet, and they supported multiple children. These children had to learn skills to survive and prosper, and that messaging was greatly emphasized to their children. Next, we have the silent generation, which is the individuals born from 1928 to 1945. They gave birth to the baby boomers and Generation X, and they were also the grandparents to the millennials. So the silent generation, their major life events were the fall of the Nazis, the rise of the nuclear bomb, communism, McCarthy era, and the Cold War. The silent generation was known for working within a system rather than fighting the system. They're more likely to parent quietly than call attention to themselves. This is also the generation that actually popularized divorce, as there was more divorce in this generation than any other generation before. And many of the silent generation raised children to be seen and not heard. So they were mostly silent. They didn't want to turn heads. They don't want to rock the boat. They just wanted to live within their own system. Finally, we have baby boomers. So baby boomers were the individuals born from 1946 to 1964. Major life events were, higher standards of living, higher educational standards, the Vietnam War, and civil rights movement. So the baby boomers were the parents of the late Generation Xers and the millennials, and they were the grandparents to Generation Z. So they made sure that their children went to college as a priority. Boomers also lived through the summer of love, so they had a chance to, kind of have some fun. And so their demographic was, they were a lot different from the silent generation. So the generation before that, because the generation before that was, like I said, silent. So the baby boomers, were a little bit more outspoken with their parenting as well. They struggled with the concept of child discipline, especially traditional discipline techniques from their own childhood. They were very nurturing over being critical. Baby boomers engaged in more discussions with their children rather than, being critical with them. Family meetings actually was a starting thing for baby boomers. They wanted to understand and value their child's perspective, and they strived to understand the whole family system, which also created the term helicopter parent. So then we have Generation X. So that's, the MTV generation. So it's individuals born from 1965 to 1980. So major life events in this generation were the AIDS epidemic, the MTV culture, the rise of video games and personal computers, Title IV and the rise of girls' sports. There are many heroes of 9/11, the rise of the internet, and the dot-com bubble. So the Gen Xers were all about parenting. They were super into understanding what parenting was about, how to be the best parent, and really caring about work-life balance, because this was also the generation that you would see more likely into, seeing more full-time moms in the workforce. So you're seeing a lot more of a work-life balance of life at work and life at home, and making sure that your children have the best care, even though you're not in home all the time. So they tend to support their children's choices from different lifestyles than past generation. This is a generation that volunteers and are very involved in the kids' development. The parents are highly involved in their children's lives. They're active in their school system. They're strong advocates for smaller class sizes. Homeschooling was more prevalent in this generation than any other generation. Generation Xers are considered to be more productive parents, which is where the term helicopter parenting also came from as well. So then you get millennials. So millennials are the individuals born from 1981 to 1996. So this is the generation that is actually starting families. They're starting to have, for the millennials, major life events were, children with the internet, a regular presence of cell phones, the rise of social media, the Great Recession, and then the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, I'm sorry. This generation was having fewer children, and they felt less likely the need to be married and having kids. Technology, social media, the internet were major influences in the millennials' lives and in the lives of their children. This generation is more open-minded to their children and the parenting styles, and they were more likely not to be helicopter parents, as they were finding themselves to be naturally freer parents and approaching their children rather compared to their older generation. So millennials continue to be cautious with their children's environment, especially food safety. They're very interested in having a parenting style and how this style is perceived by their peers. Kind of like what I talked about earlier, how parenting has changed. In other generations, parents didn't really care about what other people thought of their parenting, whereas now people are way more cautious about how they're parenting. Then we have Generation Z, which is our college age students, our young adults in their 20s. So they're born from 1997 to the present time. Major life events for them are the ever-present internet. They never knew a life without a cell phone or digital media. COVID-19 was still present for them. And they are young people activists. We're seeing more kids that are activists and protesting, and I'm sure you could see it all over social media with the recent stuff that was happening all over the news. And then finally, we have Generation Alpha, which is starting in the individuals born from 1910 to now. These are our current high school and middle school students. So their life events are happening right now. They're the first generation to be born entirely into the 21st century. And we are currently guiding this generation to be world leaders and the absolute best that they can be. And like Joan said, we take a lot from how our parents parent and how we take that and how we parent our children. So then this is going to be our first poll. So our first poll is, if I can get it up. I am so sorry. I don't know how. Oh, thank you. So we're going to start our first poll, and it is, what generation are you? So you're going to answer what generation you were born into. So I saw that everybody answered, and a majority of people are baby boomers and Generation X. So thank you guys for answering the poll. So then I'm going to go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, Joan, you're muted.
Oh, okay. So in the 1960s, it was noted parents were controlling their children with obedience and punishment. This seemed harsh to many parents who decided to raise their children the exact opposite way, with little expectations, little controlling, little punishment, and neither approach nurtured independence, responsibility, or resilience. So experts felt like there should be a combination of both obedience, punishment, as well as self-expression and freedom. And this created the 4 basic parenting styles. So our first parenting style that we're going to go over is authoritative. This is considered the ideal parenting style. The children know the parents are in charge. Parents use the expectations of their children to have them follow their rules, while they provide support for their children's feelings and point of view. If children of authoritative parents do not follow the expectations, they are given consequences, but they are also given explanations as to why they had to follow the rule that was put in place and why they are getting the consequence. These parents use reason to ensure their children have a greater understanding of expectations. Parents using this style have a good mixture of both the demandingness and the responsiveness. Our next style is authoritarian. This is our best example of the generational child rearing, as Ms. Palmer addressed. These parents expect their children to be obedient. Authoritarian parents are not interested in the child's point of view or reasoning. If rules aren't followed, the child is disciplined with a stern punishment. They don't explain why the rule exists, they just punish. This type of parenting has a very low responsiveness and a high demandingness. Then we have permissiveness. This is the last of the original 1960s parenting styles. These parents have rules and boundaries, but do not enforce them. There are little to no expectations for their children. Their children do not demonstrate any emotional immaturity or self-control. Because of this, these parents do not discipline often. And if they do, the children can usually talk them out of it, or at least down to a lower punishment. Permissive parents are known to talk with their children about the problems, but they don't provide any guidance, or they don't discourage any bad choices or bad behaviors. This type of parenting style has high responsiveness and low demanding. So then we have our last parenting style, which was developed in the 1980s, and this is called uninvolved. And this parenting style has no set of rules, boundaries, or expectations for the children. They provide little guidance or emotional support. These children are sometimes provided with their basic needs, but not their emotional or their social ones. It is important to note that although this parenting style can be neglectful or abusive, it usually comes from parents' lack of knowledge, resources, presence of a medical or physical diagnosis. This type of parenting is low responsiveness and low demandingness. It's also important to note that we will, as parents, hit every parenting style at some point throughout our child's rearing years. It doesn't mean that we are bad parents. It's common for parents to demonstrate each one, even the undesirable ones. Ideally, the most desirable goal is to be a consistent, patient, compassionate, and understanding parent while you have expectations and follow through with demands. This will allow our children to develop the skills needed for the real world, and we will go into further detail about how parenting style does affect your child. So each parenting style has pros and cons. The authoritative parenting style, again, is the most desirable parenting style to use. This style creates a loving and nurturing environment and teaches accountability. The con is this way of parenting requires finding the right balance between guidance and autonomy. This tests your this tests your patience and your ability to be calm, especially when you have life throwing everything at us. Then we have authoritarian, that the pro is children raised in this structured and firm environment know what to expect, allowing them to be task focused and driven. In order to avoid discipline, children raised in this style are well behaved. The con is that they do not have an emotional connection due to the lack of nurturing. They are more likely to rebel from the strict upbringing that does not allow them to have self-expression. It is also important to note that at some point, every child will rebel. Then we have permissiveness. The pro is that children raised in this environment are nurtured and loved. These children often do not have harsh memories of their childhood and typically have a close relationship with their parents. The con is due to the lack of consistency and expectations and routines. Children raised by these parents, these type of parenting style, do not have a clear concept of what's right or wrong. They don't know what it is to expect. Therefore, they lack the comfort that comes with consistency, expectations, and routines. An uninvolved parent, the pro of uninvolved parenting style is, although it is more likely that these children will be more self-sufficient and resilient, it is important to note that it's out of necessity for survival and not because they were taught the skills. The con is that they have not been provided a supportive and nurturing environment, leading the child to no emotional detachment and often demonstrating antisocial behaviors. Children raised with uninvolved parents often have difficulties in all aspects of their life. Then we have examples. Authoritative is, I understand you're angry, but it is okay to be upset. It is not okay to break things when you're angry. This type of statement shows that the parent is listening, sensitive to the child's feelings while providing guidance to make decisions using established expectations. Authoritarian, because I said so, or what I say goes. If you don't like it, then you can leave. Don't panic if you've said these things. We all have said these things. It doesn't make us strict or bad parents. Most parents have used all kinds of parenting styles at some point. It's so important to remember that. These statements are used as intimidation without explanation as to why something is, never allowing your child to express their thoughts and feelings, which might sometimes reflects in your parenting style. A permissive parent says, I can't make you, you make your own choice. This parenting style allows the child to make their decisions without the guidance of the adult because their brain isn't fully developed, so they can't see the big picture of how their decisions may truly affect everything in their life. And then the uninvolved parent would say something like, do whatever you want. This style of parenting is the most undesirable style. However, not all parents using this style do it purposely. It could be a result of how they were raised or due to a situation like financially, the parent had to get a second or third job, they're overtired, they just don't have the energy at that moment to parent. The parent unknowingly uses this style may provides the physical necessities, but do not give the support and nurturing that is needed.
So then the next poll is, what is your parenting style? So I'm going to start the poll now. And this is all anonymous. Okay. So just looking at the results, I'm seeing a lot of people are saying that they're more of a combination, but I'm also seeing that people are saying that they're authoritarian. Slide. So then how does your parenting style affect child development? So for the first one that we're going to talk about, authoritarian, the children tend to be the most behaved. So when it comes to authoritarian, this usually the parent usually has goals and values already set up, and the child cannot question them. So this severely limits the child's ability to make independent, independent choices, independent judgments, and decisions for themselves. Um, Research has suggested that children of authoritarian parents tend to display lower self-esteem and self-efficiency due to being inexperienced in making their own decisions and judgments. Children tend to have poor mental health and can be emotionally withdrawn due to the lack of encouragement and modeling for expressing and managing emotions. Despite having strict rules and expectations, children will display rebellion tendencies, like Joan said, particularly towards the authority figures due to the rules and expectation fatigue. So you're going to see kids that, if the parent wants them to do a certain thing, the child is going to do the complete opposite. So then we're going to get to the next one, which is the authoritative. So like Joan said, this is the parenting style that you want to strive towards, because the authoritative parenting style is generally viewed as the optimal parenting style since the environment is warm and loving and consistent with predictable rules and expectations. So children with authoritative parents usually have higher levels of self-regulation and confidence. These children are able to frequently communicate with their parents and carers without feeling like they are going to get in trouble for maybe questioning a rule or a value. These children are usually have higher levels, or have higher social outcomes. So these children are more likely to have friends outside of the home, friends at school. These children usually have healthy emotional regulation because these parents encourage independence. So these children, if they're at school and they receive a bad grade, they might be able to healthily regulate that emotion rather than completely shut down. And then these children also have higher academic achievements because of the higher self-esteem that usually this parenting style also accompanies. So then there's the permissive style. So permissive style, children have a higher risk of childhood obesity and other health problems because they have the freedom to do whatever they want. These kids are usually the kids that are making their own meals, they're making their own snacks, they have a choice of what they can eat, they have a higher risk of developing negative life skills, like because of the freedom that they can have. So they have the freedom to do whenever they want to, freedom to do the homework whenever they want to, eat whenever they want to, have as much screen time whenever they want to, pick their own bedtime. So these children are more likely to go to bed later, have higher screen time, have issues with homework at school, and like I said before, have childhood obesity because they're more likely to eat the unhealthy foods rather than the fruits and vegetables. These children have a decent social health and self-esteem. However, they have a higher risk of impulsivity problems, especially in school, because the parents aren't really strict, and then they go to school and they're meeting teachers and principals and other authority figures telling them to do what they're supposed to, and these kids are not used to having an authority parent or authority figure tell them what to do. And then finally, we have the uninvolved parent. So the uninvolved parent, the child does have a higher level of resiliency because they have to kind of figure a life out on their own. They may be more self-sufficient, like Joan said. However, it's a necessity rather than a skill. They needed to learn the self-sufficient skills rather than it's a life skill that we learn at school. They may have issues with emotional self-regulation because they weren't given the love and warmth from a parent to know that it's okay to have different emotions and how to calm down and cope with those emotional blow-ups. They will probably have lower social health, so they might be a little bit more socially withdrawn at school. They may not have as many friends. They might stay at home more often. They may not be outside the home as often. And usually these children have lower academic performances because they don't have the parent that is on them to tell them to do their homework, to study for that test, and to study with them and help them and learn different techniques on how to be a good student.
So if you're sitting here and you're going, what's my parenting style? And you're questioning everything you do, don't panic. Please stop doing that. The fact that you're even thinking that way means you are doing it right. You are a good parent. Questioning, looking to improve your parenting style shows you are in fact an optimal parent. Remember, you will use a variety of parenting styles throughout your child rearing years. Yes, there are ideal ways of parenting, but not being on point all the time is also completely normal. There are many other aspects to parenting that we didn't really get in detail of, your child's temperament, your culture, your history, the available resources, who your parenting partner is. It's a process to figure out what works best for you and your family. Our children don't come with a handbook. We are doing the best we can with what we're equipped with. If you find yourself wanting to develop your parenting style, then you've definitely already started the process. As you reflect, you decide, what will you adjust? What are the strategies you're going to use? As we've learned throughout this webinar, creating a supportive and nurturing environment is the best way to start. Establishing routines and expectations provides your family with harmony. Listening to your child's point of view and feelings while creating expectations helps your child feel heard and want to comply. As important it is to provide consistency, the struggle to balance life and parenting is real. Do not engage in feeling guilty or ashamed. This is not helpful for any member of your family. Many of us living life by winging it and doing the best we can with our best intentions because we love our children. Our next slide will actually go over some resources if you want some support or available resources to help you with your parenting.
Yeah, so like Joan said, children do not come with an instruction manual, and parenting can be really hard. According to the 0 to 3 and the Bezos Family Foundation, 57% of parents struggle with figuring out the most effective way to discipline. So, there's so many different options to change, find different ways of parenting or maybe change your parenting style. So, talking with a therapist or counselor that specializes in family therapy is a good option. Hello? Participating in a psychoeducational group or parenting skills group, going to a certified parenting coach to provide family support or help cultivate a stronger parent or child bond. There's books, podcasts, online programs that are good options, but I would make sure to look at reviews and comments and research the source to make sure that you're receiving helpful information. And then there's you set your own parenting goals. So make a plan to achieve them, include your parenting partner and your child if it's appropriate. And yeah, and these are our resources. And then I want to give everybody an opportunity. I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and we want to give an opportunity to ask any questions or any comments that you may have. You can ask the question through chat, or you can unmute yourself.